It is time to get extreme, ladies and gentlemen. ECW Heatwave 1998, the retro review, 25 long years later. That's right, the show that includes Taz versus Bam Bam Bigelow in a Falls Count Anywhere match for the unrecognized FTW Championship. We've got Rob Van Dam and Sabu defending the ECW Tag Team Championships against Hayabusa and Jinsei Shinzaki. We've got Masato Tanaka versus Mike Awesome, and much, much more. And I've got to say a big thank you to the one, the only NXT to joining me for this review. And in fact, he was the one that picked this show. NXT, what was your reasons for this show and why did you pick it?
I'll be honest with you, growing up as a kid, I never watched any ECW pay-per-views, and I still hadn't to this day. And do you know what? I sat there and thought, do you know what we do? We've done a lot of WCW, we've done a lot of WWE. Let's go extreme. And I was like, why not? Let's do an ECW one. Little Google search, went through a couple of different websites to see what people recommended was the best ECW pay-per-view. Heatwave 98 was the one. So yeah, that was my choice.
And that is the question that's going to be at the end of this is this the best ECW pay-per-view? And obviously, you can't perhaps answer. I've not seen all of them, but what I can say is that maybe you can say that, does it hold up to the testament of what people are saying online? Is it a good show? Is it a bad show? Is it somewhere in between? I have seen the majority of ECW pay-per-views, so I can make a judgment as well. So you can look forward to that towards the end of the video. Of course, though, for those that are watching on the day this is released, we're releasing this on Christmas, so you might think, bit of irony, it's called Heatwave, but at the same time, it's depending where you are in the world, you might have a bit of sunshine today, so if you are, enjoy it, and for those that are not, well, hopefully we can warm you up with a bit of hardcore wrestling action. So without further ado, NXT, before we start, what was your favorite match or most anticipated match you were looking forward to going into this show?
I mean, to be fair, it was hard to pick which one was what I was most excited for, because I mean, anytime you put Lance Storm in there, I'm like, instantly that sounds like that's going to be a banger. The tag team match with RVD and Sabu, I'd never really watched a Sabu match, like an ECW Sabu match before, so I was excited for that, to see how it all went down, the appreciation of it. And in the main event, just because it sounds like it was going to be complete and absolute mayhem. But like I said, I don't think there was a bad match to not look forward to, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I mean, there was a good lineup of wrestling on this show. And I mean, for me, obviously, the match I was most looking forward to would be Taz and Bam Bam, just because of seeing their history in ECW. Obviously, they're known for wrecking the ringside area, let's just put it that way. When they did Living Dangerously in 98, of course, Taz and Bam Bam went through the ring on the Taz Mission spot, which was really impressive. So I was excited to see what they would do here for Heatwave 98. And like you say, to see the likes of Rob Van Dam, Sabu, Mike Awesome, Masato Tanaka, Lance Storm, Chris Candido, Jerry Lynn, Just Incredible, just to name a few, along with some of the other ECW originals, the Sandman, Tommy Dreamer, and of course the Dudley boys in-house as well. So lots to dissect and get into. And without further ado, let's give everyone those little bit of details that you just need to know when we do a retro review. Of course, this show took place on August the 2nd, 1998. The location was in the Hara Arena in Deyton, Ohio, and the attendance was 4,400 bloodthirsty hardcore wrestling fans. And on commentary for the evening was Joey Styles and Shane Douglas. Of course, Shane Douglas, the ECW World Champion, of course, had been suffering with an injury as a result of Taz on the build-up to this show. What were your thoughts of them as a commentary duo?
I mean, if we can go slightly into the start of the network, and how for some reason that we've got Shane Douglas and Joey Styles in the ring, and we've got Sunny talking about her 6K body augmentation. It was kind of like, I don't understand why this is a thing and why I'm having to watch it on the network, because then all of a sudden it cuts into like a pay-per-view intro, and I'm like, well, what was the point of that? To be fair, I've never really heard either of them before on commentary. Weren't a bad job. Like, they're not as irritating as other commentators I've watched previously. So yeah, it weren't a bad job by them.
To be fair, I enjoyed what they did in commentary, and obviously, like you say, that is the way. I mean, most ECW shows, when they start off, Joey Styles is in the ring, or someone else is with him in the ring. But I think later times it's Joe Gertner, and obviously they have their little mingle with the crowd. Like you say here, obviously Shane Douglas and Francine was brought out. As Joey said, he was going to have them by his side, and like you say there, they complimented on how how each other were dressed, Joey and Shane. And obviously, like you say, Joey Styles, they're saying that his suit was newly purchased, double-breasted, just like Francine. Of course, like you say, it's the 90s, ladies and gentlemen. It's ECW. It's hardcore. It's what to expect. And of course, like you say, when Francine did say that her ones were 6K, we'll just leave it at that. Her ones were 6K. Joey Styles got a motorboat for his troubles. So, yeah. You know, it's not for this is one that's going to be PG, ladies and gents. Just keep it in mind with that. But what were your thoughts with the video package when you're seeing all the hardcore action? Obviously, like you say, you're inexperienced to seeing a lot of ECW TV, so to see sort of a lot of some of the big bits and big moments that would show in that opening video package, does that get you a bit hyped for this show?
Yeah, I mean, it gave me a very tape trade feel. Like it's kind of like you would go to school and you'd give your mate this tape, and then or you'd get one and you'd watch it, and it almost like it felt like you were watching almost like backyard wrestling back in the day. It was a very very strange intro. Like the whole production is very weird. Like there are some janky camera angles, and the way that they're doing backstage interviews, and the cameraman just can't seem to hold the camera straight, and he goes like that, and I'm like, what are you doing with the camera? It's the weirdest stuff, man. But no, I appreciate it for what it was. I mean, I think they even show the spot from Taz and Bam Bam where he goes through the ring in the intro package, so I appreciated that, because at least I had some sort of context, because for me, like I said, I've got no history going into this. I'm just watching it fresh.
Absolutely, yeah. And for me, just to see some of those big moments again, just reminds you what you're walking yourself into. And obviously, ECW, I was a very passionate ECW fan when I could see back in the day. Obviously, a couple of the shows I did get to see in the 90s, one I will reference in this show later on as well. But at the same time, like we say, we've got some big matches to go to, 6 in total. And let's not waste any time getting into that first one on this show, which of course is going to be none other than Jerry Lynn taking on Just Incredible with his entourage. Now, for those wondering who is a part of the entourage for Just Incredible, where it's Chastity, which is a blonde female, along with Nicole Bass. Some may remember her for a brief stint in WWE as well. And the most handsome man, Jason. Big pectorals on Jason. Fair play to him on that one. He's had a couple of days in the gym for sure. But when you saw that this was going to be the first match of the evening, obviously Just Incredible, former Alva Montoya, man of war. Of course, Jerry Lynn was good old JL, I believe, back in WCW under a mask. And get to see these two just tear out for the first 15 minutes of the show.
Yeah, I mean, my own sort of only history with Justin Incredible is being part of X Factor, really, and his brief stint run in WWE, which, to be fair, I kind of liked because I'm a bit weird like that. But Jerry Lynn come out, and I was like, oh my God, is Kenny Omega transported back in time? Very same sort of aesthetic and apparel between the pair of them. It was really weird to watch, but no, I mean, I know these two guys can go, so I was, like I said, it's not a bad match to not look forward to on this card, so I was excited for it.
Absolutely. Well, let's go into some of the highlights of the match, let's say, as we go through, and we'll give our full opinion at the end of the match. And just to say, Joey Styles did give a bit of a view that these two have wrestled a lot over the summer. This match is about pride, and the winner of this match will win the feud between the two. This was going to be the closer of these two. And of course, Shane Douglas very quick to say, well, it's not about pride, it's about climbing the ladder here in ECW. It's about getting towards the top end of the card. Jerry Lynn very early in the match hitting a plunger to the concrete floor. Of course, a plunger is a body splash for those keeping score at home. Just Incredible, though, reversing a body slam into a reverse DDT. Of course, weapons are allowed to be used in ECW. Of course, it's a bit of a different environment here. You're not going to be disqualified for using a chair or a table or anything like that, so get used to hearing weapons throughout this show. Jason, of course, on the outside with part of the entourage, holding a steel chair next to Jerry Lynn's skull as Just Incredible runs into that chair and knees straight into the skull. What was your first taste then of just seeing weapons just being included into the match without any fear of any disqualification?
Yeah, it's like it is. Obviously, it is a reminder as to what sort of wrestling used to be like back then. Because obviously, you don't see as much of it now. But like as this show progresses on, it just seems to be like. Do you remember the guy that used to throw beer cans to Austin at the end of a match? And it was just like the guy had perfect aim. There's so many spots later on where some random guy will just throw a chair in, and just whoever's in the ring just catches it perfectly. And it's like, where do they find these guys, man? But it's like I said, it was a good introduction. It's not too over the top, because obviously there are much more OTT matches when it further down the card. But yeah, it's just a shock. Then you sit there and I'm just sitting there waiting for the first headshot with a chair as well, because obviously we don't see that no more. So it's essentially just counting down the minutes until we got that, really.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, to be fair, it was quite a brutal spot with a big reaction there with that going into Jerry Lynn's skull. But of course, just incredible. You mentioned about beer tossing, by the way. Just incredible. Putting his arm under the guardrails, taking somebody's beer. Someone wasn't happy as well. We could see security going quickly towards the rail as well. But that beer went straight into Jerry Lynn's face, along with the plastic cup as well, in a sort of form of a punch. Lynn actually reverses Just Incredible's attack to land a DDT on a chair. We get a 2 count. Of course, that's helped with the entourage to get out of it. Lynn does a hurricanrana to Credible off the turnbuckle towards the floor, where Credible goes through a table. That was a beautiful looking spot and a very dangerous one as well.
Yeah, and do you know what? This is the first time when I clocked as well that there's no padded mats around the ring. It's pure concrete floor as well. And I think, again, later on in the show, that adds to an even more like risk factor to it. Like, I was shocked. I was like, I can't believe, like, this was what it felt like with ECW, was like you couldn't hesitate. You couldn't hesitate these kind of spots. Like, today when you see someone, for instance, climb a ladder and go to, like, they stand at the top and they're going to do a move off it and they hesitate for like 5 seconds. And it's like with ECW, it was, you couldn't hesitate. Everything had to be go, go, go. You couldn't stop. So when you see moments like this, it's almost like you have to hope that the person taking the move is ready for it, because there's just no stopping.
Absolutely, yeah. Like you say, no mats on that concrete fund. Like you mentioned with the stuff earlier on as well, with the way that some of the backstage promos done. It's a very low budgeted company. It's not someone with millions and millions of dollars behind them. So they work with what they've got, and it's kind of like say it's very kind of got that indie kind of rough, raw, edgy feel about it. And I think that's some of the beauty that you can get also with ECW and watching. Like you say there, you got to be prepared if you're going for a table on the floor there after the Hurricane, a very dangerous looking spot, but one that was very, very well executed. And they did mention as well, Just Incredible as well, had been taking a lot of criticism for his time of wrestling in WWE. And of course, it's a situation now that he got to show himself off in ECW and prove everyone was wrong. And the commentary did say, not the first time ECW's proved that they have got something right where the rest of the wrestling world has got it wrong. The entourage, though, distract the referee. Jason gets involved once again, but Jerry Lynn hits him with a pile driver. Nicole Bass then looks to get involved. Instead, is hit with a low blow. I'm not saying anything further about that, what the crowd were implying with that. But of course, then Bass gets also hit with a chair shot also. Chastity accidentally low blows Just Incredible instead of Jerry Lynn when he was being held. Lynn then hits her with the tombstone, which of course is Just Incredible's finisher as well. But the finish comes to the match then when Lynn goes to the turnbuckle to Just Incredible, but instead he gets hit with a That's Incredible from the top rope, which of course is a form of a tombstone pile driver coming from the top rope as well. A vicious way to end that match, but beautifully executed as well for the 1, 2, 3. Just Incredible winning the match and also winning the feud.
Shocking to see a pile driver off the second rope of the like my daughter was watching it, and my daughter's 11, and even she knows. She was like, oh damn. That looks rough. Like, I react how I react, but to watch my kid go, oh yeah, no, I don't think so, and it's like it's very sketchy stuff, man. But yeah, like I said, this is what they used to do back in the day, and it's almost like a real big culture shock when you see it like that. But yeah, crazy finish, man. Like, I was just not expecting something like that.
No, absolutely not. And to be fair, again, it's the beauty of ECW and two great performers. For me, I thought it was a really, really good match as well. The time of this match was 14 minutes and 36 seconds and didn't outstay its welcome. It kind of felt, if anything, I'd say it felt like it was shorter, to be honest. It felt like a breeze watching it. What would be your final takes from this match, and what would be your star rating for it?
I mean, like, for me, I think it was the perfect way to break someone into an ECW pay per view. Like, not too much when it comes to the hardcore aspect of it, and it just kind of just sort of sets the bar for the rest of the night. Like, this is going to be a bit of a Fruit Loop show. It's going to be a bit crazy. You're going to see some weird stuff. So, like I said, I appreciated it.
Yeah, I really appreciated it as well. Obviously, to go back into the ECW realms, it's been a few years since I've watched an ECW show. I'm aware that there is good variety in these shows. Everyone has it down. It's just chairs, it's just tables, just this, just that. Yeah, there is a bit of violence of that in this match, but obviously there's some fantastic wrestling as well. And this is a fantastic wrestling match, and I think that's something that you can take away from this and go, brilliant stuff. And at this point, these two, they are openers of the card. These two go on to become ECW World Champions in the year 2000. So they both are on the up after this and looking for that moment to have their breakouts. But obviously, Just Incredible is the one to get the victory on this night. Of course, he ends up being the first of the two to win a world title in ECW. I think it was around April 2000 to do so. Of course, he was probably without his entourage by that point. But what would be your star rating for this opening match?
I'm going to say 2.5. I thought it was a really decent match, and there's like I said, there was aspects of it that just added a little bit more excitement to it. You said the Hurricane run to the outside, the pile driver finish off the second rope, just the couple of little things that just sort of increased it above sort of a fairly decent average match.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go quite a bit higher than you. Actually, for me, I've gone for a 3.5 star. I feel like that. I really enjoyed it. I felt like it was a good pace, and like I say, a match where I feel like it was only half of the time what it actually was. For me, is always a good thing because then I sit there and go, well, I've clearly done just this, and I probably could have done more. This didn't overstay its welcome. Yes, there's a lot of interference. I think that probably can take away a little bit from the match, but at the same time, this is someone that's come from the realms of WWE, just incredible. And the people were questioning Justin if he can make it in ECW at this point. And this is a guy that obviously has his entourage to help him get to the next level because he probably can't get the job done on his own. So I like the storyline narrative they're going with it as well. But all in all, for me, I think it ticks a lot of good boxes here. And for those that do like a Dave Meltzer rating, we can bring those up as well. Should we call it up?
Go for it.
Dave gives this a 3.25 star rating for this match here. So he's quite satisfied.
Like
as well,
I said, this is going to be my problem with this show. Is like this is my first ever ECW show, so it's kind of like if I'd have seen many more ECW shows before, I could probably make a more like a fair assessment of it. Like I'm going from a purely walking into it aspect of it. So your review, your star ratings are probably going to be more accurate than what I am. I'm probably going to be a little bit more harsh just because of this is my first ever ECW pay-per-view.
But I like it as well, though. It's nice to have like a bit of variety in there, like you say, where you've not seen a lot of it before. It's a first-time experience as well, and it's the idea of would you go back, would you not go back? What's the things you'd look out for this shows? What's the standout? So there's plenty of things to be excited for and to look out when it comes to ECW Heatwave and 1998. And one of the other things that could be quite exciting to know as well, your opinion of, is match number 2, and of course that's going to be Lance Storm taking on Chris Candido with Tammy Lynn Sytch, of course, coming to ringside, aka Sunny from WWE days. And of course, Tammy comes in for a surprise appearance here. Of course, Chris was upset apparently on the build to this, thinking that Lance Storm had the thing for Tammy, thinking that Tammy also had a thing for Lance. So the fact that she was here on this show in support of Chris Candido, of course, was sporting headgear just like Rick Steiner, and parading around the ring Rick Steiner-esque as well. Candido was apparently he'd had his ear taken off in the match with RVD and Sabu, and of course plastic surgery had to put that ear back into place. So he did have the ear there, but of course he was a bit vulnerable in this match. But I mean, that's pretty much the story. But what were your thoughts with Tammy being introduced into this one? Of course, she didn't waste any time getting hardcore either, saying that Chris Candido was 240 pounds of the hardest pounds she's ever felt.
I apologize now because I got Tammy mixed up with Francine from the start. But I'll be honest with you, it seemed like she was drunk, like she was slow in her words, and I'm like, I apologize now, but it's like that was the only impression I got from it, and it was like she has a lot of controversy about her, Tammy, and it's like you kind of just leave it as it was. But hey, for 98, it's one of them things where like it's one of them surprise things that fans pop at. I mean, I imagine if watching this in 98 as an avid ECW fan would have probably been a bigger deal than what I found it. But yeah, it's like I said, I find it very hard to watch just because I got the pure impression that she was drunk. Like I said, her words and her speech was slurred. It was slightly painful for me to watch.
Yeah, I can see the uncomfortableness, and obviously, watching recently Dark Side of the Ring season 4, they tell the story of Candido and Tammy as well, and obviously knowing where they were to where they got and how it all finishes, and obviously with what's going on recently, obviously with Tammy as well, you can't help but feel that dark clouds have followed always. So like you say, there is an uncomfortable feel seeing it here, but at the same time, what I can say with what I felt was a joy with watching this was actually the match itself. I thought Lance Storm and Chris Candido put on a hell of a show.
Yeah. I was surprised that they actually found someone who's smaller than Lance Storm, if I'm honest. Like, Lance Storm is normally the smallest guy in any wrestling company, and when Candido and him squared up, and I'm like, oh my god, this guy's actually shorter. This one I was hyped for, just for the pure fact that I know I know what Lance Storm's capable of doing in ring, like as a technical kind of wrestler. I think that's what I was looking forward to with this one. Chris Candido, I'm not so much clued in with like his catalog of matches and stuff like that. But like I said, I thought this just had the ability to be almost like I said, a very technically well-based match.
Absolutely. I felt we got that as well there, but obviously we didn't take too long to get into the story narrative of the match either. Lance Storm taking the earpiece off earlier in the match, so Candido was exposed. Obviously, Shane Douglas, of course, was is in the stable with Chris Candido, so they said they were training together before Candido had this match, and he said that he was complaining a lot about his ears, so the fact he was exposed meant he was going to be very vulnerable. Joey Styles, of course, with the hardcoreness that it is with an ECW show, so we might lose another ear in the middle of the ECW arena on pay-per-view live. It didn't happen. But Tammy didn't take long to get into the match either. She pulled Lance's leg at the ropes. Lance chases her around the ring, but then falls into Chris Candido's attack. We see, though, Lance get back into the match with a suplex from the ring apron. Chris Candido from the inside of the ring going to the floor. Then it was actually hit with a baseball slide, sending Candido over the rail. And we see, for the first time this evening, Lance Storm doing a springboard dive from the ring to the rope into Chris Candido, who is actually in the crowd. What were your thoughts with this spot?
Start off with that suplex is just insane. Like that what probably 7-8 foot drop onto a concrete floor is just is rough as anything. And this show does make you wince with some parts of it. It is really really painful to watch. But like I said, yeah, the first of many top rope dives like springboards is like something like Lance Storm might expect to do it. Later on, someone does it, and I'm like, my God, where has this guy been? But yeah, it's a good little chain of events. Yeah, it's just like I said, it's weird to see like again, first ever ECW pay per view, and the amount of stuff that like I know that ECW used to do a lot of this kind of stuff, fighting through the crowd, but like they just honestly didn't care. Like they were quite happy to throw themselves sort of 7-8 foot from the ring into the crowd. Didn't care who got hit, who landed on what chair where. It is pure chaos.
It really is, and obviously it does continue as the match goes on. Obviously, Lance Storm hitting a superplex from the top rope into the ring. He follows that as well with a spinning heel kick from the top rope as well. No stranger to being flying around Lance Storm in this one. Obviously, then hits a Tiger Driver for a 2 count. We get, though, to the close of the match, and obviously Chris then is given powder by Tammy. That's powder. And as he goes to use it, Lance actually basically counters it by the hand then going straight into Chris Candido's face. Candido can't see as everything's in his eyes and ends up hitting the referee instead of Lance Storm. Storm hits Chris and positions him for a moonsault, and this is when we see Tammy get herself involved in the match. And of course, to put it nicely, she's basically caressing Lance's ass. That's pretty much what's going on here, to the point that she can actually push him onto the buckle, so he kind of is hurting downstairs. The ref then actually confronts Tammy and is waving his hand at her, and that's when Chris Candido gets back up and again doesn't know what's going on. He's still blinded, so decides to do a schoolboy roll up to the referee. As this happens, basically Tammy's dressing up again with a wardrobe malfunction with the referee's hands. She's taken out of the match to the point that security has to come down with a towel to rescue her, basically showing her, well, herself to the entire ECW crowd. Boos, as you can imagine, from a bloodthirsty 18 to 30 male demographic as well. But to this point, then we see Chris Candido go to the top rope and hits his power slam from the top rope, which of course is known as the blonde bombshell, to get the 1, the 2, and the 3. And Chris Candido picking up the victory. What were your thoughts with the closing of this match?
Why is the referee putting hands on Tammy? There was like he doesn't even like try grabbing her by the hand or the arm. He's gone simply straight for the bit of material that is going from the top of the top to round her neck, and I'm like, what? Like, don't get me wrong, I appreciate it for like the creativeness of it, but it's just it's such a random thing, and you like it just there's a string of stuff that goes on in this show where it's just like, that's random. Why would they ever do that? Why would they ever do that? But yeah, like you said, it was definitely aimed at the 18 to 30 demographic, this spot, and it certainly went down well. Yeah, just like it was a surprising finish. Like still wasn't expecting Candido to pick up the win with it. If I'm honest, I thought the reverse of the powder to the face, and then just everything that went down, him trying to schoolboy the referee, and yet to still get the win. I thought it was kind of a shock, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I mean, obviously knowing these two, how they are in the company at this point, Chris Candido is a part of a stable, so you want that stable to remain looking strong. But at the same time, Lance Storm was a up and coming guy who was getting pushed to the next level. Of course, he does eventually end up in a tag team with Just Incredible, actually, who was involved in the last match. But at the same time, for me, I was unaware of who was going to win this match. I couldn't remember it from previous. I sort of watch it. It felt like I was watching it with first time eyes again, which was quite fun. And I've got to say that, like you said there, I don't know why the referee was around that area. And to be fair, it's not something that I want to see in today's wrestling. But for knowing what the time period is, for what they are looking to do, it's ECW, it's hardcore TV.
Yeah.
They're looking for this. It's risque. That's what they're looking to do. And obviously, it's a time when that sort of stuff would happen. Like you say, I can appreciate the creativity of what they are trying to do. It's not something I want to see today, but it's something that I can see why Paul Heyman with the pencil was thinking that will get a kick. And it worked with the crowd that was on that show, that was in attendance. They were not just bloodthirsty, they were thirsty in other ways as well. But obviously, Chris Candido picking up the win here in this match, lasting 11 minutes on the dot here. What would be your star rating for this match?
Again, because I'm sort of like, I feel like I almost rated the first match too low now, because I don't know. I'm going to say 2.5 again. I think like solid match, some creative spots, wacky finish. I suppose. I'm like just a bit. I'm a bit like all out of whack with my ratings on this one, because I'm just so unused to rating like ECW, and like I'm pretty sure I'd love to see a 5-star ECW match if one exists, just so I know what I'm looking for. But I'm going to say 2.5.
No, that's fair. I mean, for me, I'm going to go for 2.75. I think that this match in ring quality is a lot stronger, but I can't help but look at the finish line. Despite, like I said, I can appreciate the creativity at the time, I'm looking at it through today's eyes. So I am going to knock the match a bit because of it. So I'm going to go for a 2.75. I think it would have been a 3, or again, another sort of 3.25, 3.5 star style match for the in-ring quality of the two performers. But well, I call him Big Dave Meltzer. He gives this also a 3.25 star rating. So Big Dave, quite satisfied with that. Quite like the finish, perhaps.
Big Dave seems to be a bit of an ECW fan back in the 90s, really.
He does indeed there. And obviously, wait till we get to the following match that will take place. But before we do get there, we do have basically a video package of something that happened before the pay-per-view, just to give us a reason why one match would not be happening, which would be New Jack and Jack Victory in a weapons match. Basically, New Jack was in a parking lot and he was attacked by Jack Victory and the Dudley boys in a premeditated attack. It looked like Balls Mahoney, Axel Rotten, and Joey Cronus, I think it's Cronus, looked to make the save for New Jack at that particular time, but the damage had been done. Weapons were involved. The New Jack was actually left bloody in the car park. We did also see Rob Van Dam, Sabu, and Bill Alfonso backstage as well. And of course, with them, they're the tag team champions, but the storyline with them is there's a bit of friction with RVD and Sabu. RVD, very cocky, Mr. Monday Night, thinks he's the star of the team. Of course, he's also now the television champion as well. So him and Sabu not really getting on, but Alfonso says that the opponents for tonight are losers, and of course making a lot of reference to the fact that the opponents are Japanese. So yeah, that's pretty much the backstage there. Again, 1998, ladies and gentlemen, we'll leave that there. But what we will not leave there, and we're going to talk about in great detail, is possibly my favorite match of the entire show. Masato Tanaka versus Mike Awesome. Two relatively unknowns for the ECW market at that time. They'd had a couple of matches. Apparently, they've been rivaling since 1995, according to Joey Styles in Japan. But of course, their exposure here on the American market. And my goodness, I can't wait to go through the details of every spot that happened in this match, because NXT, Steve, this was a banger from start to finish for me.
It is, and like aside from the hardcore bits, just Mike Awesome's athletic capabilities, I was shocked by. Like this guy, like for his size, he's easily 6'4", 6'5", maybe 250 to 270 pounds. But this guy can fly, man. He was doing some aerial stuff that I see cruiserweights do, and I was thoroughly impressed by that alone.
Yeah, I mean the dude is so impressive, and Tanaka as well. No small feat of his own, was able to do some great impressive moves in the match as well. But you mentioned Mike Awesome, and obviously to think of a guy that had, you know, everything in his locker. I think the one thing he probably lacked was the promo, sadly, in his time wrestling. But I mean, the guy as a wrestler was absolutely, you know, second to none, incredible, great power wrestler, like you say, the aerial ability as well. And Paul Heyman knew he had a gem on his hands when he had Mike Awesome. Obviously, would future become a world champion. Tanaka also future world champion. These two would rival for like the next 12 odd so months in ECW with what they did. So this was like the first of many great matches they would have. But for those that are wondering what actually happened, is why are they praising this match? We don't even know what happened in the match. Let's go through a few details. And just to start off, basically, and this is run of the mill, first 30 seconds of the match. Awesome decides when he's running towards the turnbuckle to run up the top to the ropes. Top rope, jumps off, and it's a back elbow into Tanaka like it was nothing. Like as Silk said, it was like a cruiserweight doing so. Awesome does a suicide dive over the top rope to the floor on Tanaka as well. And we see a release German suplex, which Tanaka no sells. And instead, he lands a snap power slam on Mike Awesome. Follows that with a springboard clothesline as well, sending Mike Awesome to the floor. I mentioned weapons get involved. Tanaka grabs a steel chair. He runs the whole ramp, which was apparently, I think, like 75 feet long, just hit Mike Awesome in the head with a chair. What were your thoughts with that? That seemed like just a bit of a hokey spot, but a bit of a fun one as well.
Yeah, I mean, the way he hits it, like the method and action he uses to hit him with the chair is a bit kooky. Like, I mean, for ECW, I was expecting him to hold that chair by the feet and just wail it at him after running 75 feet. But hey, to be fair, it's something that's still done today. Where like with wrestlers, like especially like for instance the Young Bucks, they're still doing spots where they're running the length of the ramp to do, I don't know, a hurricanrana or a dive or something or another. So I appreciate it, but yeah, it's just the way he was holding the chair that was a bit weird for me.
It was a little bit strange, but certainly it was fun as well. Like you say, you can definitely take some joy out of it. But yeah, obviously as we go back into the match, both are swinging chairs on the floor, basically just hitting chair and chair until Tanaka eventually wins the battle. But Awesome, though, actually manages to backdrop Tanaka into the front row. Awesome pulls the rail and then does his own springboard dive into the first row with Tanaka laid out on steel chairs in the front row. Obviously, we've seen that spot in the last match, but with Awesome, like you say, just being a bigger dude as well and so comfortable on the top rope before he makes the leap as well. Incredible.
Yeah, I mean, like give him props for moving the barricade out of the way, because I think even he knew that he has certain limitations. But yeah, I was like I said, it's just to see a guy of his stature just even attempt to do a spot that we've just seen. Like I said, it's a cruiserweight move, and this guy being a heavyweight is just it's impressive in itself.
Absolute indeed there. And obviously Awesome brings Tanaka back into the ring, does some of his power moves as well, shows the versatility this guy does. Hits a power bomb, or as he likes to call it, an awesome bomb for a 2 count, followed by an Alabama slam, and then an awesome splash from the top rope. Again, only a 2 count as well. Awesome hits a brutal chair shot, which bends the chair. It's disgusting, actually, when you look at it. Again, only a 2 count. What were your thoughts? You said about ECW and waiting for those chair shots to the head, seeing that one completely bent.
Yeah, like I said, my wife was watching it with me a little while ago as I was watching it, because I had to watch this one twice. It was that good, and like the way he just hits that chair and it deforms and takes the shape of Tanaka's head. And I just said to my wife, I said, "Look at that chair, man." I said, "This is how bad wrestling used to be in the 90s, but they just didn't care." It was honestly, it's insane, and like, yeah, like don't get me wrong. There's like I almost felt like these chairs were made of like aluminium, just something just really cheap metal, like the fact that they would bend so easy. Like there's one match later on where someone gets wailed with a chair and it doesn't even sound like a real chair shot, but yeah, like props to the guy for taking it, man, because I imagine that's gotta suck.
Yeah, I can. Headache in the morning for sure. After that one, there's no two ways about it. But Awesome's not done at this point. Hits a running release Awesome bomb. Then he actually sets up a table on the outside. Mike Awesome. He then actually does a chair shot from the top rope to Tanaka, and then we hear Shane Douglas screaming on commentary, "Pin him, like you've got him." This is the first time we've seen Tanaka properly hurt. Make sure you take advantage, get the pinfall. Instead, Mike Awesome, well, he gets a bit carried away. He attempts to do another running Awesome bomb to the table, of course, which would lead to Tanaka going over the top rope. But he actually attempts it twice, and it's countered both times. Tanaka then actually hits his own Awesome bomb to Mike Awesome through the table on the floor. And just to basically put some perspective on it, this is disgusting to watch, really, because Awesome
Suck.
hits the back of his head on the floor first. It is a brutal looking shot. And to be fair, something that could have gone really, really nasty on the show.
Yeah, like it's the first time in the night where I sit there and go, "Oh my god, that guy's probably dead." It's shocking. Like like it, dude, it must have sucked. Like there's not much more you can say about it. Like even like I watched this match twice, and it sucked just as much as the second time watching it as it did the first time.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a bit of a it's a great spot, but a really bad spot because it feels quite an unsafe spot.
It's ECW 1998 is what it is.
That's pretty much it. Well, Tanaka attempts a pin anyway after that, only gets a 2 count, believe it or not. Mike Awesome kicks out. Tanaka hits his roaring elbow shot as well, which only needs a 2 count, but then follows up with a tornado DDT on steel chairs, all in the ring, and finally gets the 3 counts. So what were your thoughts with the finish, and what were your overall thoughts then with Masato Tanaka versus Mike Awesome?
I appreciate, obviously, from when he does the power bomb through the table to the outside, and the fact that there is a duration of time that gives the realistic ability that Mike Awesome could have recovered to kick out at 2. I just felt that the finish was slightly underwhelming with a tornado DDT onto 2 chairs. Bearing in mind that these guys have just beat the living hell out of each other, hit each other enough times with steel chairs, put each other through tables, and it's a tornado DDT onto chairs that finishes. Otherwise, it's a really good match. And it's just like I just felt it was a little bit underwhelming. But like you said, if they go on to have more killer matches over the next 12 months, I can imagine that they're probably saving the best finishes for later.
There are some really great finishes for some of those matches. I can confirm that. But what I would say is then, would you say that because sometimes matches can peak? Do you reckon that in the moment that perhaps the right time for it to finish would have been when Awesome went through the table to the floor? Because that's enough to sell that match could have finished there.
Yeah, possibly, but I think for me to make it a more realistic, Tanaka would have needed to have got him back in the ring straight away. But the fact there is a whole, I don't know, maybe 20, 25, 30 seconds before Tanaka even attempts the pinfall, I think it gives the realistic possibility that he could have kicked out. I think if he'd have got him in the ring quicker and done it, then maybe I would have believed it. But then I think if you'd have done that finisher with the table spot, would it have peaked too early, and like every other match afterwards that they have be not as good as the first one?
That's always an argument as well. Yeah, something you can say there. For me, I was okay with the finish. Obviously, I think it's a case of that Awesome from that point onwards was a wounded animal to the point that he was vulnerable and it just was waiting for the right shot. Obviously, the roaring elbow was meant to be Tanaka's finisher, so the fact that Awesome had kicked out of that as well, maybe a second one of those maybe was the appropriate finish. I don't know, but the fact that the tornado DDT on steel chairs still has its place, I guess, in it because chairs are involved. It's another shot to the head, so perhaps maybe that is the way to close it.
I think do you know what? I think I'm doing it injustice really, because I think to nowadays, a tornado DDT onto a chair is like everyone kicks out of that now. It's like it's not a very effective move nowadays as to probably what it was 25 years ago. So give it props. It probably is more of a better finish than what I'm giving it credit for.
Absolutely. Well, the match goes for 11 minutes and 49 seconds. Again, another good length match on the show. Doesn't outstay its welcome. Star rating for you for Masato Tanaka versus Mike Awesome.
Do you know what? I'm gonna say 4-star on this one. Like I said, I was not expecting it to be as good as what it turned out to be, and I think that's probably why I've given it a 4, just because it absolutely shocked me. And then even the little things like the chair shots and the power bomb through the table, it's like it's a really good match. It's a really fun ECW style match.
I think it's a really fun match. I'm going to agree with you, 4-star as well. I think that is the a fair rating for it. And like you say, I think there's more great matches for these two to come as well. And like you say, they're maybe not giving everything away here, but they've shown enough to the way you're invested to see what more they can offer and what more they've got in that locker. So fair play for them on that showing. Looking at Dave Meltzer's rating for this, he's also given us a 4-star rating. So 4s all around for Masato Tanaka versus Mike Awesome. Well, we go backstage after this one. We see Taz backstage saying tonight's the night, and it says that you're going to tap Bam Bam Bigelow to the FTW champ, the only title that matters in professional wrestling. Not Austin's WWF title, not Hogan's WCW title, not even Mike Tyson. He says that you pinned me. and I'm going to take that win back. I'm going to get my ass kicked, but that's what I like the most. Beat me if you can, survive if I let you. Of course, that's the classic end saying for Taz on his promos. And we also get to see backstage the Dudley boys with Joe Gertner. And of course, basically just saying that the odds are in the favor of the Dudley boys for their match this evening. And Bubba saying that, Dreamer, you can give your soul to Jesus, but your ass belongs to us, the Dudleys. That ring is our church. And of course, Devon does say testify at the end.
Can I just clarify that Taz 25 years later is still trying to get that FTW championship over?
Yeah.
Like he's still to this day trying to make it a legitimate world heavyweight championship. It's like it gets treated as a nothing title, really.
And the thing is, it's funny you mentioned actually, because just to bring it to modern day, because I wish it never got brought back. I really do, because for what it represented for the then and that time, because Taz was the television champion at that time. We're going to go through the history of that match very soon as well, because when we come to, but he was the television champion. He lost that title. The fact that, he said he was the uncrowned world champion, the fact he put Shane Douglas down, who was the world champion, who couldn't compete on this show, made him believe he was a world champion, and to the point that Douglas was technically ducking him. So he was like, I will win the world's title when I get to that position. But until then, F the world, basically, was Taz's motto at that point, and that's what made that the unrecognized world championship. However, even though it's an unrecognized world championship, it's still on the line when we get to Taz versus Bam Bam Bigelow. So Bam Bam does try to win the said unrecognized championship. But before we do get there, we get to go to match 4 on the show, which is actually for another championship, which is a recognized one, the ECW tag team titles. It is the champions Rob Van Dam and Sabu taking on Hayabusa and Jinsei Shinzaki. Hopefully I've said those names correctly and done my best with justice for that. But yeah, I mean, this was seen. Sorry, Sil.
I said sounded good to me.
It sounds good to me as well. I'm going to roll with it. So if I've got it wrong, let me know in the comments below. But what I will say is that this was seen apparently as a dream match to many. Obviously, 2 of the top Japanese performers, obviously. Of course, Shinzaki was better known as Hakushi in WWE, and Hayabusa as well was very high flying as well for his style. Very similarities to Sabu in ring as well. Obviously, you can see with the likes of Rob Van Dam also. But what are your thoughts with this as a tag team encounter?
On card, it sounds dynamite. We'll go into it, and it's a bit iffy at the start. But I just, the one thing that really, it just sat in the back of my mind the whole time was like, all I can think of is Lord Tensei and Albert. When you got Shinzaki on there with all the writing on it, and I was like, oh my god, I'm seeing gimmick infringement. That's all I can think about right now. It was such a pain for me, because I was like, I can't get Prince Album out of my head now, dressed up as like Shinzaki, and it's one of them things, unfortunately. But hey, I was like, I'm a massive tag team wrestling fan, so I was well looking forward to this. Like I said, I've never really watched a Sabu ECW style match. I'd only ever been sort of savvy to his, if you call it, work in WWE, because of obviously the limitations of what WWE and ECW are.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a different world, isn't it, with those two? And I have to agree with you. The start of the match was a bit, let's just say, when we see matches at the start of this show where Jerry Lynn and Justin Credible had a feud over the summer that had culminated here, you could see 2 wrestlers that had chemistry, that had wrestled a few times before, knew what they were doing. Tanaka and Awesome have been rivaling for years in Japan, obviously been brought to ECW screens for the first time properly, but you see that chemistry was there. You could tell these guys were all in the ring together for what felt like the very first time. It took a little while for this one to get going.
Yeah. I mean, even there's other things even later on in the match where like it feels like spots are missing, or like they've fallen asleep, or like they're not paying attention to what they should be doing. Like we'll go into it later on, but yeah, like, there was moments where like pinfalls were supposed to be broken up, and like you've just got the tag team partner standing there doing nothing, and it just looked really strange.
Yeah, I definitely can see what you're saying with that. I've noted a few down, but obviously feel free to throw in the other ones if I have not mentioned all of them. But yeah, I mean, obviously the little storyline arc as well in this one is that RVD and Sabu barely get along. They have difficulty even deciding who begins the match. That just goes to show you with everything with these two. But Hayabusa botches a springboard back into the ring very early into the match as well. It looks to be a clothesline RVD, but it seems like there's a bit of a miscommunication. Obviously, the fans are shouting, "You effed up" as well, nice and early into the match. But Shinzaki does a praying top rope walk and then hits a sort of unique sort of Insiguri move off there. What were your thoughts with that praying move there? Kind of similar to like an Undertaker-esque when he goes old school.
It was. I'll be fair, I was very surprised by him. Like, he has a couple of moves in his arsenal. Like, he does. There's a couple of like dragon whips he does later that just like a very different style. And like some of the stuff he was doing is like you see normal wrestlers do these moves, but he just seemed to put a very unique spin on a lot of stuff. And I was thoroughly impressed by him during this match.
Yeah, particularly his dragon screws were quite
Yeah,
impressive on RVD later in the
yeah.
match, weren't they? They were very good, obviously. I mean, I remember for some of his days in WWE or WWF, of course, back in New Generation times, he was most famous for a feud with Bret the Hitman Hart, and I think that they always had some great matches together on the In Your House circuit. So I was looking forward to seeing him perform once again in the ECW zone, like you say, to go against RVD and Sabu as well. We definitely brought out some interesting moments in this match. But Sabu, anyways, we go back into it. Sabu escapes Hayabusa by going to the floor. Hayabusa goes to the Hayabusa, goes to the second rope, but does a standing moonsault back into the ring instead. Sabu applies a camel clutch on Hayabusa. RVD does a moonsault off the second rope, lands on his feet, just hit a drop kick. Unnecessary or quite impressive looking?
It's Rob Van Dam, man. That's what you expect. Like, honestly, that's what I expected him to do.
Look, they said he's the biggest show off in the world, and what else can you say than moves like this? That sums it up perfectly, doesn't it? But Shinzaki lands a springboard dropkick on RVD, and he goes to the floor. Then it's followed by a dive. Also, Hayabusa does an Asai moonsault to both RVD and Sabu on the floor. This is where I think the match really starts to pick up here at this point. RVD clotheslined into the crowd, and Hayabusa actually is in the joins in the crowd along with Shinzaki. Sabu then runs off the ropes, uses a chair to springboard himself off to the top rope to jump onto the opponent into the crowd. Third match in a row, we're seeing the same spot here, but certainly with another unique twist of it. Sabu using that ECW style, using that steel chair to get him there to get into the crowd. What did you think?
Yeah, you say that, but it almost feels like, how certain periods of time there's just certain things that wrestling companies and wrestlers just do in every single match. Like, it just seems like that was the thing for ECW is, there's a crowd, we're going to fight in amongst it at some point. I'll tell you what, Sabu, thoroughly impressed by this guy. Like I said, I've never really watched his stuff in ECW, but like, this guy can move and he can do stuff. Like, I never expected him to be as as agile and as his ability to just like springboard or dart across the ring or just pull off certain moves. It's like, he's just unreal, man. Like, I've found a new love and appreciation for Sabu from watching this match.
Nice. We never know. We might get a few more retro Sabu matches then in the future then to see a few more of his work. But I mean, some great stuff though, nonetheless. Then obviously, of course, with these guys then actually fighting in the crowd, they give RVD an excuse then to get Hayabusa on the rail, where she can actually hit his corkscrew guillotine leg drop, of course, from the ring apron, of course. Classic RVD move. RVD stretches Shinzaki, of course, with his belly exposed. We see Sabu come off the top rope with a chair. Quite brutal, quite clever in a way as well, the fact that the stomach was exposed to land that chair shot.
Yeah, like I said, like I said a minute ago, just very impressed with like some of the unique offense. Like, there's even points where like, do you know what? We haven't even mentioned it yet. The guy outside the ring with the whistle, because my God, he was so irritating the whole way through this. But there's a point later on where he just pops up with a chair for a spot, and I think it's like I don't know, sort of like against someone. I think RVD springboards off a rope or something. It's just like, there's so much unique stuff that, because obviously it's hardcore, we don't see a lot of it nowadays anyway. But even like, for instance, in AEW, some of this stuff I still would expect to see. But there's just stuff that I feel like I've not seen before in my life watching these guys wrestle.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this a fun match as well, because the fact is there were so many unique spots there, and obviously that's why I feels the need to highlight them, because it's not simply we're saying, oh, headlock, arm drag, we
Yeah.
were talking about that. Goodness, it would be a pretty boring stream, wouldn't it? But the fact that you're mentioning moves that you say you don't see every day, and I think this match provides a lot of them. I think that's what's a quite unique twist with this match.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, as we go back into it, obviously, RVD's on the canvas. We see a springboard senton from Hayabusa. That's followed by a springboard knee from Shinzaki, and then a lion salt from Hayabusa for a 2 count. Of course, Sabu making the save. Harakarana from Sabu off the top to Shinzaki, and RVD hits a 5-star frog splash. Again, only a 2 count. I didn't expect that after the frog splash from RVD. But then RVD powerbombed by Shinzaki. Hayabusa lands a 450 splash for Sabu again to make the save. We got a rolling thunder splash from RVD simultaneously with Sabu coming over the top rope with a leg drop. Apparently that was the same move that actually did Chris Candido's ear. Of course, we mentioned that earlier in the stream already. But then we get a Boston Crab from Sabu with a leg drop from the top rope combo. RVD coming off there. And not really a leg drop. It was kind of his whole body just landing on Shinzaki's face.
It did look like RVD sat on his head. That was the one point where I watched it and I was like, "Oh my god, I think you've probably just squashed his head." Yeah, it was. Hopefully, RVD's got a soft bum, so it didn't hurt as much.
Well, if we ever get Shinzaki for an interview, we could probably find out. But yeah, weird. But the thing is, though, maybe it did knock him for 6 a little bit, because there was a weird spot that followed this not long afterwards, because Shinzaki's sort of waiting on the top rope. There's a table in the way, and you can see he's trying to communicate to Sabu. Sabu moves the table, and then Sabu stands there to get hit with a shoulder tackle from Shinzaki. Did you notice that?
Yeah, like I said, this is the point where there's some proper iffy stuff. Like, I found points that Hayabusa's sitting on the top rope at one point, just doing nothing for about 30 seconds, and then there's a point where I think they go for a pinfall at some point with RVD, and Sabu's just standing there watching him, and it's like, what are you doing, man? Like, this is kind of like a weird sort of 2-minute spell where the stuff just seems to get like almost break down a little bit.
Yeah, it seemed to be a bit of, again, a miscommunication, and just that idea of that maybe the chemistry isn't quite there just seems to come towards the end of this match. But Hayabusa slips on the top rope, and you mentioned about Bill Alfonso getting involved, putting a chair there, RVD hitting a Van Daminator. But of course, really, because it's near the other end of the turnbuckle, we know later on it's becomes known as the Van Terminator, but at this point that move had not been invented. So Van Daminator for this stream, but we know it's a Van Terminator really. RVD placed on a table that gives way as well. That was a horrible looking spot, the fact it just give way. Hayabusa though still lands a splash. Sabu though brings in fresh tables to the crowd's delight, and then actually lands his Arabian facebuster on Hayabusa. Shinzaki hitting then hit with a Van Daminator from RVD, the traditional chair, and of course then the kick to the chair into the face. But the challengers then are laid out on the table. RVD and Sabu come off the top rope with leg drops, both going through the table at the same time. Sabu actually pushes Rob Van Dam off of the pinfall to get the victory for his team. Of course, let's not forget there's friction between Sabu and RVD. What were your thoughts then with this tag match? Your overall thoughts?
Very good. Like I said, it's a bit iffy at the start, and there's a couple of puzzling bits in between, but otherwise a very good match. But this is also one of the matches where, like, especially with the table spots, for some reason, all like the ring hands are putting, like, they're trying to set the tables up for them, like inside. Like, I think it's this match where there's one of the guys is leaning in, trying to prop the legs up and set the brace, and I'm kind of like, this is like, they honestly don't care about kayfabe with ECW. Like, they honestly just work. No, as long as the table's set up, it's fine. But I thoroughly enjoyed this. Like I said, dodgy start, iffy in the middle, but otherwise everything else I thought was thoroughly entertaining.
Yeah, I thought overall this match, like you say, I think the chemistry wasn't fully there with these guys, but there was some really magical moments in this. Certainly the middle portion of the match for me was really, really good. Like you say, it took some time to get going. There was a little bit of iffiness towards in that final third, but they certainly got it back together to hit the home run for that finish. That was a very popular ECW moment with the two tables being broken at the same time there for the finish there, with RVD and Sabu picking up the victory. And obviously, commentary did say that the champs were on the ropes, that we could get new tag team champions champions, but the champs did retain in what was the longest match on the show as well, at 20 minutes and 51 seconds. What would be your star rating for RVD and Sabu versus Shinzaki and Hayabusa?
I'm going to say 3.5. I thought it was, like I said, thoroughly entertaining, some good stuff that I don't see anymore or have ever seen. Just as I said, it's the ring chemistry and the dodgy moments in between the middle that kind of mark it down for me.
Yeah, that's the problem for me, because like I do feel this is, like you said, that it's like a 3.5 star match, this one, but there is some moments that, like I said, there are things that take it away from this one. I actually think it makes it one of the weaker matches on the show for me. So I'm gonna go with a 2.5. I feel, just because the fact that, had those moments not happened, I think I would be giving a bit more of a glowing reception for this match. But still, it's a big match, and I think a lot of people go back to this one and think it's a big moment in ECW history, according to a lot of people. Obviously, when you look with the finish and how the match was done, and the reign of RVD and Sabu as tag team champions. But looking and seeing what Dave Meltzer says, 2-star rating. Not happy with those botches.
It's a bit harsh, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I suppose the overly critical of the botches, I suppose.
I suppose you have to be. Let's see if he was critical with this match. Taz versus Bam Bam Bigelow in a Falls Count Anywhere match for the unrecognized FTW Championship. Obviously, we got a bit of history. We got a video package going to this one, which I thought definitely was good for both of us. We could see the Living Dangerously spot, the finish, of course, that saw both men go through the ring. Of course, Taz has his Taz submission, Bam Bam falling backwards, those two breaking the ring, Bam Bam pulling Taz out and winning the television championship. Taz on that night acknowledges Bigelow and shakes his hand. However, Taz wants to win the championship back from Bigelow. Bigelow loses the TV title to Rob Van Dam, meaning Taz can no longer win the title back from him. The Triple Threat interfere in a match with Joey Kronos and Taz's cousin Chastity, which basically pushes Taz to the brink. Taz actually then injures Shane Douglas's arm, which means that, of course, according to the words of Paul Heyman, who's doing the audio for this, the war was on for Taz and Bigelow, seeing them brawling. Taz continues to go after Shane Douglas and calls himself the uncrowned champion, which then brings in the FTW World title by Taz at this point. Bigelow says, though, he will never get to Shane Douglas without going through him. But then Taz offers to join the Triple Threat. Looks like he's joined the group, but then double crosses them. Of course, he's not joining the group. It's just to get to Shane Douglas once again. And of course, to get to Bigelow as well. The war continues to be back on. And of course, Taz attacks Douglas one more time in a match when Douglas had a match with RVD. So that's pretty much the build here with this. It's clear that Taz wants to get to that main event scene, wants to get to that world title, since he can't win the TV title anymore, but he's got to get through Bam Bam first. What were your thoughts with that history package given to us via Paul Heyman?
I appreciate it, because like I said, I'm gaining fresh here. I didn't know a lot of it, and like I said, I'm always glad to get some sort of story to what's going on. Again, just the jankiness and the like I'm not critiquing it, but it's like it's a very, like I said, a very indie tape wrestling kind of package, and it's kind of like the way it's shot and the way it's produced, and even like there was even throughout the show, like the intermission, like the transitional bits on the show, it just felt very grungy, and it was like, I appreciate it for what it was. But yeah, it's like I said, he done what he needed to do to tell me a story for someone going in for the first time.
Absolutely, yeah. And for me, I think it was good to relive it and see everything that gone on the ECW TV through the middle. I've only seen the pay-per-view matches, so I've not actually seen the build in the middle, so very much appreciative of what they gave for us. But obviously, we go into the match itself then. Of course, Falls Count Anywhere in the building on this one. I think it was even billed as an ECW death match as well. Shane Douglas on commentary says he will call this match right down the middle. We won't see a cheerleader from him. And Joey Styles mocking. We don't really get that too often in pro wrestling everywhere else. So he said it'd be interesting to see if Shane Douglas can remain impartial. Bigelow hits an early power bomb in the match to Taz. I think this was in the first 20 seconds of the match, so you know that this one is not going to waste any time with arm drags and headlocks. Taz shows impressive strength as well with a Samoan drop. They fight on the ramp, and Taz lands his Brooklyn boot, sending Bam Bam into the crowd. Of course, he then jumps into the crowd at Bam Bam, but Bam Bam catches him and then actually puts him back first into the guardrail. Chair shots are used afterwards onto Taz, and they fight through the crowd. Bigelow even then actually throws Taz pretty much like a bowling ball into to a row of chairs. What were your thoughts of this getting pretty much into the crowd? Because obviously Taz then, as they got away from the crowd, was still thrown through more guardrails.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a trope, really, isn't it? That it just seems that at some point they're going to fight through the crowd. It's a shame because it's like I respect what they do with it, but it's kind of like where they were on the ramp, especially like if you're paying to watch this at home, it's kind of a pain because you can't see half of it. Whereas like I know they have camera guys, but where they are specifically, you're missing half the action because you can't see half of it. But I said it's ECW and it's what they love doing. They love throwing beers on each other and sort of like. I think the first, I think one of the things Taz does before he jumps in is he even throws a beer at Bam Bam when he's sitting in the crowd. So yeah, it's just one of them things, man. But like I said, it was a bit awkward for me because I couldn't see half of it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I get your aspect with that. Obviously, from a viewing perspective, it's not the most eye pleasing. However, obviously, going back into the time zone again, what ECW represents, that edginess, the not having the best production, but working the strengths of what they've got. And obviously, working the strengths of what they've got, you fight through that crowd who are going to be, bloodthirsty, passionate. They're going to be loud and they're going to be really into it. And obviously, that then can transcend to us back home, going, oh, people are loving it there. And obviously, perhaps adds to the glorified hardcoreness that is that match. But obviously, Taz doesn't put up with this for too much longer. He decides to try and get Bigelow to the floor, tries to get a pinfall attempt. Muscles back in as well, landing a Fujiwara armbar in the crowd as well. But Bigelow does manage to escape. But Taz then thrown over the guardrail, which is going towards the ringside area again, is kicked in the head, and after that is bleeding as well. We see Bam Bam place a table in the corner of the ring and actually throws Taz face first through it. It's kind of like an arrow. What were your thoughts? That was for me, it was a dangerous looking spot.
It was like a dart on a dartboard, really, wasn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. Again, something again. You just this is again why you can appreciate just something you don't really see nowadays. It's like it's always the back of the neck or the back going through a table, but actually watching someone go straight through it, I can appreciate it.
Yeah, darts was a very good. I just wanted 180. Just want to have one of those moments, wasn't it? It's a proper spot for the time. Broke beautifully. So yeah, absolutely incredible. But yeah, going back into after that, so say Taz is bleeding at this point as well, and the remainder of that table is then placed into another corner. But instead of Taz going through this time, Taz actually puts Bam Bam through the remainder of that table using a T-bone Tazplex to put Bam Bam through. But Bam Bam does manage to get back in control of the match, and of course, this is where they go fighting into the ramp. Remember, we mentioned earlier on about living dangerously. These two went through the ring. Well, Bam Bam, he goes to go for a body slam on Taz, and it's countered into a DDT. And these two go through the ramp to the concrete floor. And I've got to say, for time period or not, that still got a pop out on me today. Wow, what a spot!
Yeah, absolutely. It's man, we always love it when someone goes through a ring or the ring collapses, or do you know what I mean? It's one of the high spots, really. It's yeah, it's like I can respect the time they took afterwards as well, like the fact you don't know if either of them are going to get back up, and then Bam Bam recovers and is up, and then all of a sudden, like 20 seconds later, Taz gets up, and it's kind of like the tension at this point and the build to a kind of will they recover is great, man. I loved it.
I love that as well because commentary is shouting out like, are they going to be okay? Joey Styles is wondering, will these guys get back up? Shane Douglas is shouting at the medical to go and check on Bam Bam. Forget Taz, just check on Bam Bam. And obviously, like you say, Bam Bam gets out there first. And like you say, when Taz gets out, just the pure adrenaline on the anger, everything he's got there. Bam Bam sort of like sluggishly getting back towards the ring where Taz is just full throttle, runs up, climbs on the back of Bam Bam, locks in that Taz mission submission, and of course, doesn't take too long, and Bam Bam does submit, and Taz picks up the victory. And of course, Taz doesn't waste any time putting his focus towards Shane Douglas at the end of the match, actually getting on the mic and saying to him, basically, beat me if you can, survive if I let you. And of course, Douglas really upset the fact that he's got through Bam Bam, throws the monitor out of the commentary area in towards the crowd area, and also destroys the headset as well, leaving commentary, leaving Joey Styles to do the rest of the show on his own. But Shane Douglas aside, thoughts of Taz versus Bam Bam Bigelow, falls count anywhere.
Yeah, really good. My issue was just the finish, like the submission. Like he jumps on Bam Bam's back, and the referee is automatically already calling for the bell. Yet, from what it looked like to me, was Bam Bam was still trying to reach for that bottom rope, and I was like, I thought I don't know, the presentation, the finish was just a little bit weird. Like I didn't physically see Bam Bam tap out. which I think was the biggest issue for me. Like, it almost felt like a screwy finish. But otherwise, yeah, I think it's a solid match. It's like Taz is just that stable factor of ECW, and is kind of like, if you turn around and say a Mount Rushmore of ECW, you put Taz up there with like Sandman, RVD, Dreamer, Sabu, whoever. Do you know what I mean? There's a plethora of names that can be up there. But yeah, it's a good match. It's just like I said, I think it was either a presentation issue or a screwy finish that I wasn't really keen on.
That's fair enough. I can understand it because it's quite rushed, that finish. I would have preferred to just seen a little bit of the struggle from Bam Bam, because obviously the last sort of bits before, even a pass out, I think would have been quite appropriate for it rather than a tap out, But, Taz gets the job done. And obviously Taz, for me, was one of my favorites in ECW back in the day. RVD was always the favorite, but Taz, there was just something legit about the dude. I know he's, not the biggest in stature, but the way he presents himself, the hard knocks of Brooklyn, and the fact that he's a human suplex machine as well. I always thought Taz was legitimate, and the fact that you could put guys away like Bam Bam Bigelow, this was just impressive for me. And obviously, look, you're always going to remember this spot in this match where they go through the rampway. It's a cool looking spot. It really makes the match, and yeah, it's the most memorable part for me.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Well, time of this match is 13 minutes and 21 seconds, and then I'll be coming to you for a star rating.
I'm gonna say a 3. I don't think it was the best match on the card. It had some good spots, but I'm gonna say a 3.
I will go for a 3.25. I think that, like you said, it's a good match, not the best match on the show, but obviously a lot of it is that big spot towards the end, obviously, where it gets a star rating. And yeah, the fight for the crowd, I mean, like you said, it's difficult to see everything, but I do appreciate what they were trying to achieve with it.
It's just the way it's presented, which is obviously, it's a me thing more than anything else, really.
And Dave Meltzer gives the star rating for this one a 3 3/4 star rating. So I think Big Dave was happy with this one.
And see, this is the thing, the lucky thing that Dave has, is he's done these at the time when he's probably watching the product, and he's got like the story and all that thing. I think that's the one thing that probably throws it out for me, is like I'm missing. Although we did get a video package, but it's like, I think if I'd have seen more of the matches building towards this, I think I probably would have scored this bet a bit higher when it comes to the story alone.
Absolutely, I can understand that. Indeed, obviously, you've got more to grab onto at that point as well. There, so I totally get that completely. Well, Joey Styles is on his own for what is left for the one match on the show, which will be Tommy Dreamer, the Sandman, and Spike Dudley versus the Dudley Boys. Of course, that is Bubba Dudley, Devon Dudley, and Big Dick Dudley, for those that are keeping score at home. And not to mention, there was another Dudley at ringside, Sign Guy Dudley as well, of course, who's got a torn ACL and is on crutches, but he is the innovator of silence, which I thought was an awesome tagline for him. But anyway, before we get to that, we do get the reason why this match is happening. It's the Dudley death drop to Beulah McGillicuddy. Of course, that is Tommy Dreamer's childhood sweetheart. Easy for me to say. Beulah, of course, breaking her neck and putting her out of wrestling. And of course, Dreamer was handcuffed at the ringside, so we could only actually watch this happen as well. We do see the slow screams of Dreamer as it goes off. Joey Styles can't help but share his feelings about the Dudley Boys, saying that they're scumbags. He's meant to remain impartial. He won't do it. He says it broke up the Eliminators, also broke up the Gangsters, and Sandman was put in hospital and they almost broke his neck. So that's all the work of the Dudley Boys. But the Dudleys come to the ring. Of course, like I say, it's those 4 Dudleys. We've got a bogus referee, or a referee that's sort of I don't know, a sellout ref, if you want, in Jeff Jones. And of course, we've got Joe Gertner, of course, is, pretty much a bit of a sleazeball. That's pretty much to sum him up nice and short. But so pretty much they got into the ring. They talked for about 8 minutes, but there's not really much that's come out of it, really. Gertner's kind of like the ring announcer for them, introducing a lot of them. But Bubba does get onto the microphone and says that they challenge everyone in WWF and WCW. But also, on this night, there's not one person that would come through that crowd that could take out the Dudleys. That, of course, it's the natural thing they do on every show. They challenge the crowd to get as much heel heat as possible. And of course, Joe Gertner, or has he called himself Joe, I always leave them sore, but they keep coming back for more Gertner. That's what he proclaimed himself on his entrance. 1998, everybody. Hardcore. It's not
Oh
PG.
dear.
It's not PG.
You know what? Like this, like I said, the only thing I will say about this is that the fact that we obviously get the slight video package, and then we get the Dudley boys doing a 3D to a woman. It's almost like it makes me feel less bad about when they did it to Mae Young for a table, because like at least I knew they were doing this pre WWE, where they were beating up women and putting them through tables. Do you know what I mean? So I'll give them that.
Whatever they could do for heel heat back in the day, that's what they did.
Absolutely.
Dudleys were menaces in ECW. For those that have seen the WWE work, to see what they're like in ECW, it's almost another level up. These guys, they were, scandalous, you could say, back in the day. But yeah, scumbags, as Joey Styles said as well. But we got obviously Dreamer, Sandman, Spike coming to the ring, all of them bringing ladders when they come to the ring as well. And Dreamer lands a hangman's neck breaker on Devon Dudley early in the match as well, trying to get that revenge against Fabula. We then end up with Spike and Bubba in the ring together. Then we get Big Dick and Sandman in the ring. So it was kind of like a feeling out process at the start. And all of a sudden, a traditional 6-man tag team match. And this was a street fight as well, by the way. Basically, the tag element just gets abandoned and all hell just breaks loose from this point. We see a ladder set up in the ring with Spike Dudley going to the top of this really large ladder, jumping off the top and heading to the floor. That was a really cool looking spot, would you say?
Just add on to the tag team element, that just seemed to be the thing, because that's happened with this the RVD match earlier as well. That just completely went from tag team to Texas Tornado style match. But but this was my point I was saying at the top of the show, when like in ECW, you just kind of like, there was no hesitation, you just had to do it. And if you watch Spike, he climbs that ladder and he stands there and goes, yep, and just jumps straight off, no hesitation whatsoever. And like I said, nowadays you'd see people do that and they'd like, oh no, will he, won't he, kind of thing. But in ECW, it's just like, nope, it's balls to the wall, and you've got to do it. You've got to be willing to take these risks and do this absolute crazy stuff.
Absolutely. And to be fair, they continue to do that crazy stuff, don't they? We mentioned there was Spike Dudley just a couple of seconds ago. And obviously Sandman gets involved on the action as well. He does a swanton off at the top onto a ladder with Devon underneath. That's going to hurt your back, Sandman. Not that it would stop Bubba doing it a couple of seconds later either. He did the same thing to Tommy Dreamer with a ladder underneath as well.
Yeah, Sandman definitely got that one wrong. He's supposed to be ladder, Devon, then yourself. So, I think he needs to learn that one for next time.
Absolutely. Well, Spike lands his acid drop on Bubba for a 2 count. Devon then hits a side slam to Spike on the ladder. The Dudleys, though, end up very shortly afterwards all in the Tree of Woe. Sign Guard Dudley gets in on the action. Of course, he's put in a figure 4 lock by Tommy Dreamer. We see then the referee, Jeff Jones, attack Dreamer also. And, of course, he actually mimics pile driving the blow-up doll that is accompanied with Jeff Jones to ringside, which of course has got Beulah's face on it as well. Charming. But of course, Dreamer actually gets hold of Jeff Jones and hits him with a pile driver. Joe Gertner gets brought into the ring, and he's put in the Tree of Woe as well with the other 3 Dudleys that are hanging upside down. And basically, we see throwaway drop kicks into chairs to all of the faces in the corner. And just for wondering, well, we can understand what Spike, Tommy and Sandman were doing to the Dudleys. Who did that to Joe Gertner? It was the referee, because the referee was actually insulted by Joe Gertner on the build to this match of not having any hair.
That was the one thing I couldn't understand either, because I was like, okay, how are they going to do this? There's only 3 of them, 4, and they've tied up 4. And all of a sudden I see the ref grab a chair, and I'm like, why is the referee setting this spot up? Have I missed something here? And all of a sudden, they just all do these basement drop kicks onto the chairs, and I'm like, why has the ref done it? I honestly was the funniest thing, because I couldn't understand it all. And I was like, ECW's weird, man. Like, they do the weirdest stuff. Like I said, I couldn't understand the point. Like, I had to play it back like twice and watch it, and I went, why's the referee got the chair and set it up? Like, am I missing something? Is kayfabe not a thing in ECW?
Well, I mean, as I say, Joel Gertner did say to the referee that the other ref, that the bogus ref they had, at least he had hair. So I think that this referee took exception to that and obviously gave him an excuse to get involved. But at the same time, I found it hilarious, that spot. I'm not going to lie to you. It's, I understand, completely bonkers, but feel good as well. But anyway, we get back into it. In Dreamer driver to Devon, and then of course Big Dick Dudley makes the save, and of course a move that is called Total Penetration from Big Dick Dudley onto the ladder. It's basically a sit-down choke slam, which was done to Dreamer.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. Swinging Bulldog from Spike Dudley is countered then, and he's put through a table on the outside from Big Dick Dudley. Sandman uses his cane, but Bubba uses a chair, and that was another brutal chair spot, speaking of them throughout the night. Bubba misses a splash, though, on Tommy Dreamer and lands on the ladder. Bubba tries to do it the right way this time, but just lands on the ladder. And Dreamer lands a DDT on the ladder to pick up the victory. And as Joey Styles screams, Dreamer gets retribution for Beulah. What were your thoughts before we get to the closing angle? Because the match, or let's say the angle to close the show isn't finished. But first off, what were your thoughts of this match, this street fight between these guys?
Exactly what I expected an ECW pay-per-view to be. Like, absolute barnyard, crazy, just absolute madness. Like, the fact that these guys brought down 3 ladders and only used one of them, I thought was like the weirdest thing in itself. Like, I'm like, okay, yeah, I got it. But yeah, table shots, chair shots, like swantons on ladders, through ladders, whatever else. Diving off the top of stuff. This is, if you want a definition of ECW, this match pretty much sums up ECW.
Yeah, I would agree. It definitely has the hardcore element. Obviously, the originals, the icons of it as well. Tommy Dreamer and the Sandman. Obviously, Spike Dudley, no stranger to being thrown around in every match as well. That's pretty much what he always did in ECW. And obviously, the Dudley Boys, you know, they were a strong point of ECW before their turn going to WWF, of course, in the latter stages of 1999. But obviously, yeah, this kind of wasn't finished afterwards because Tommy Dreamer didn't really get to celebrate for very long because, Jack Victory come into the ring and put a guitar over Dreamer's head after the bell. But this then led to the return of New Jack, who came to the ring with a trolley of weapons. Stop signs being used, Big Dick Dudley being sent over the rope by a hit with a trolley. Jack Victory was laid down and had a stop sign on his privates, let's just say. New Jack with a golf club decides to hit the stop sign to hit him underneath. You can imagine now that, not a Jack Victory, put it that way. Victory was the last thing he was feeling after that. But after that, New Jack then lays out Victory with a guitar shot as well. And then all the baby faces, if you will, the good guys, the ladders come into the ring and they all celebrate, all climb on the top of it. So it's New Jack, Tommy Dreamer, and Sandman with Spike Dudley just circling around the ladders in the ring as the show goes off air. So all in all, star rating and thoughts of this 6-man tag team match. So that's exactly what you feel was an ECW match. Does that give it a high rating for you?
Do you know what? I'm going to say 3.5. I think it's what I expect from ECW. It's just batshit, absolute crazy. Excuse my French, but like the fact that New Jack comes in afterwards, and for like just to clarify to the American audience, shopping cart is thrown at Big Dick, and you're like, that's a shopping cart, a shopping trolley, and then he throws it at him again to take him out of the ring, and I'm like, they're just absolutely insane, man. Like, just, yeah. And then you told me before what New Jack matches were like, and the fact that we didn't get a New Jack match, but you said to me, oh yeah, his matches can sometimes be a bit irritating because his music plays the whole way through. And it's like this whole segment with New Jack is just him, like, and his music blaring. And it probably isn't even the right music. It's probably some copyrighted music or whatever. But yeah, it's just absolute craziness, man.
It is copyrighted music that's being used. You are correct there. And yeah, I mean, this is actually, it's tame for New Jack standards. Let's put it that way. There's no staplers. There's no forks. There's no, it's not the John Moxleys of today. What we'd see, a New Jack, for me, looked like he was having fun out there with that one with Jack Victory, especially with the golf club there. But yeah, it's everything ECW rolled into one there. Obviously, the match is 15 minutes long. That segment afterwards is about 5 minutes long. But yeah, it's wacky, it's wild, but it's ECW and it's what it represents. And yeah, for me, I've got to give that a 2.75 star rating out of 5 for me on that one because yeah, it has its fundamentals, and I like the fundamentals that are brought to the table with this match. And even though the finish is a bit quick for my liking, I like the fact that Tommy Dreamer did get some revenge on this show. But yeah, all in all, this match as well was 14 minutes and 26 seconds, and Dave Meltzer gives this a 2.25 star rating. So there you have it for that one there. 2.25 star rating for this one. So yeah, that is pretty much the full review of this for ECW Heatwave, the retro review. So if you had to give a score out of 10, what would you give?
I mean, for ECW, I'm gonna say an 8. I think like it has everything you'd want from an ECW pay per view. There isn't a bad match on the card, which is another plus. There's some questionable decisions. Don't get me wrong. From like we said earlier with the Lance Storm match. But like I said, I think it's thoroughly enjoyable from start to finish. Like, and I think anyone could go back and watch this, and it's like it's not too outlandish or like kind of like. At no point did I sit there and have to go avert my eyes from what I was watching because it was too hardcore. I think this is like I said, I think any sort of young wrestling fan that wants to just see what ECW was all about could go and watch this and just be thoroughly entertained by it.
Absolutely, indeed. Then, obviously, you probably can answer the question of whether this was the best ECW pay per view that's been happened. But do you reckon, as a bar, that it sets high?
Wait. I can compare it to one other show, and it was the December to Dismember, and it was definitely better than that.
I think every or most shows ever were better than that show. But yeah, I mean, to be fair though, for an ECW show, is this sort of thing that makes you, wet your palate and think, I'm going to go back for more?
Yeah, I mean, if I had the time or anything, I could probably sit there and watch more of it. Like, there is some great wrestlers in there, like Mike Awesome. Like, I didn't realize how good that guy was, and like, I'd be quite happy to go on now and watch more Mike Awesome stuff because, like, I was completely blown away because like he was in WCW or WWE at some point, wasn't he? And I just remember him just being totally underutilized wherever he was. But in ECW, that just seems to be like his jam, like his like place for him to make a name for himself. And even with Sabu, like I was thoroughly impressed with Sabu. Bearing in mind I'd never really watched any ECW stuff. So yeah, there is reason for me to go back and watch more stuff.
Absolutely, indeed. You mentioned Mike Awesome, obviously, was an ECW champion, walked out of the company as ECW champion to join WCW. That led to the infamous WWF Superstar versus WCW Superstar for an ECW championship. It was Taz of WWF that won the title for Mike Awesome, who would then later on go to lose that championship to Tommy Dreamer, who, of course, then would lose it to Justin Credible. Of course, it was a very wacky period in the year 2000. But just to go through a couple of let's actually first get the final score rating. Sorry, what was your score out of 10 for this show?
8 out of 10 for the show.
8 out of 10. I'm going to agree with you. I think 8 out of 10 is a very good reflection of this. Like I said, it's not a bad show, bad match on the show, in my opinion. I think there's all good matches on there. I think Tanaka and Awesome is must see for a lot of wrestling fans who haven't seen it before. It's a really good one. And I think certainly for me, the first 2 or 3 matches of this show really sum up ECW of the variety of what you've got. And I think as you get towards the latter, you see what ECW is properly about in the last couple of matches of the show. So all in all, I would say this is definitely one of the best ECW pay-per-views they've ever done. It's hard to question if it's my favorite. I've got a couple of personal favorites, one of mine being ECW's Guilty as Charged 1999. I'm a big fan of that show, mainly because we mentioned Taz earlier on. He ends up not having to have that FTW Championship anymore because that's when he beats Shane Douglas for the ECW World Championship. So they'd actually dragged this out till January 1999. And of course, just another bit of a throwback of what goes on going forward with this show afterwards as well. Lance Storm, Chris Candido is not finished there. It leads to the debut of Tammy Lynn Sytch, I believe, which of course is better known as Dawn Marie with Lance Storm, which leads to a mixed tag team match later down the line. And of course, we mentioned also about the triple threat, Shane Douglas, Bam Bam Bigelow, and Chris Candido. They had been rivaling with Taz, and of course, Taz gets RVD and Sabu as tag team partners for the next show. In fact, they were known as the new triple threat, pick up a victory at November to Remember in later that year. So there you are. That's a lot of information there of what's going forward, and that's our rating of the show. Is there anything you'd like to give us final words before we close off the stream?
No, man, like I said, thoroughly enjoyed it. It's, do you know what I mean? It's good to step out of my comfort zone every once in a while and see something that I've never really watched. So I'm glad I picked this ECW one, man. Like it's actually been really fun to watch.
It was a really fun show to watch, and of course, this was NX Steve's choice, this one. So, NX Steve, I think you picked a really good one for us there and really enjoyed it indeed. But thanks to everyone that's watched this one. If you've watched it all the way through, then please just let us know your thoughts of the show in the comments below. And if you haven't seen it, we recommend go and check it out. It's a good show. Make sure to go and do so. But thanks for watching, and if you can't get enough, in the meantime, you want to see more videos, you can see up-to-date content on the channel, or more rewind videos are available for you right now, including myself and NX Steve. Thanks for watching, take care, and we'll see you for the next video.